Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of
Psychopinion.
Now, this is part two. I'll go ahead and say that right away. Part two to the Ed and Lorraine Warren one that we just did. You'll notice we're all still dressed the same, and we're all still here. Rob took his hat off, so that's different. But
The only difference.
I took my hair down.
Oh, Liza's hair is down. I'm still in the red shirt. So this is part two, and the reason this is part two is because there's just so much information out there, and we still have a few movies to cover, as well as some other information. So same as before, spoiler alerts. That's the only time I'm going to say it. I said it a bunch of times in the first video. We will be discussing some movies that are that are based on true events of Ed and Lorraine Warren, which I will say again, that is a huge term, based on true events. It's very...
It's based.
It's based.
Just based on true events.
I would say that a more accurate term would have been extremely loosely based on real events.
Inspired by true events?
Inspired is good. Inspired is good.
Yeah.
Inspired by true events. So what we're doing is we're discussing Ed and Lorraine Warren. If you have not seen the first video or first podcast, I would say go ahead and go back and get into that one first, because a lot of information is going on in that one, and jumping into this one, you're probably going to be a little lost as to where we are. But we're kind of going through the movies, we're rating the movies, how we felt the movies were as far as just their enjoyment and entertainment value. And we're also talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren and what they had to do with these movies. So there's the Conjuring universe, and that involves the Conjurings, the Annabelles, the Nun, and the Curse
Of La Llorona.
La Llorona. And so I've also included...
La Llorona.
So I've also included a couple of others, because those are in the Ed and Lorraine Warren universe, not the Conjuring, but the Ed and Lorraine Warren universe, meaning that these are other movies based on Ed and Lorraine Warren popular movies. The ones that we added in was Amityville Horror and Haunting in Connecticut. Those are two movies that actually very much were involved with Ed and Lorraine Warren's actual life, and two cases that they covered. So we're going to go right back into it, guys. And once again, because I missed that part, I am here with my wonderful co-host Liza.
Hey.
And our one of our favorite guests to have on, Robert Walker.
Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for being here, even though we never left, because we literally were just like this. We literally were like, this is getting to be long, so let's cut it in half. So
welcome to part two.
Welcome to part two. We're still here.
Welcome.
We're still doing it for you. So where we left off, if you listen to the other one, is where we left off. It was, we just talked about the Curse of La Llorona. Llorona. I've been fucking that up, and
Llorona.
I took 4 semesters of Spanish, and I'm lost. La Llorona, and that's it. That's the last time I'm gonna say it. So we just covered that, and we're moving on to the Amityville Horror. Now, Amityville Horror has multiple movies done on it. There's multiple parts to the movie. The original one was made in 1979. I want to say James Brolin was in it, and that was the original movie. And then they made a bunch of sequels off of that, and then they made the remake. And the remake that they did was made in 2005, starring Ryan Reynolds, and that's kind of the one I'm going to discuss, because this is actually one of my favorite horror movies. It's in my top 10 for sure. I really enjoy this movie. I think Ryan Reynolds was incredible in it.
Oh yeah.
The ladies love him. His shirt's off in it. So ladies, if you want to go back and check out young, buff, beautiful Ryan Reynolds without his shirt on, by all means, it's right there. Amityville Horror, 2005. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you, as I did in the first episode, I'm going to go ahead and just give you the IMDb straight off the back of the box if you're at Blockbuster description of this movie. And that is when George Lutz, Ryan Reynolds in this case, and his wife, Kathy, Melissa George, find a beautiful new house in the small town of Amityville, New York. They think this place is too good to be true. After they move in with their kids, they find out the cheap price tag is thanks to the house's sordid history. The former tenant murdered his family after supposedly being possessed by the devil. Believing the home is haunted, the couple find a priest, Philip Baker Hall, to help them rid the place of evil spirits.
Ooh, how macabre.
How macabre is that? Yeah, I know it's macabre. I actually read it macabre in the first one. If you're tuning in again or you're seeing the sequel, you know where I'm coming from.
Just throwing it back.
Just hang in there because it's been a long one. So, Amityville Horror is one of my favorite movies, and I don't believe that the remake actually has as much to do with Ed and Lorraine Warren. I'm referencing the remake because it's more current in my mind. I believe that the first one, the 1979 version, Ed and Lorraine, did play a larger part in that movie because they were a large part of that story. However, there are reasons that I think that they were really taken out of the remake, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But yes, Ed and Lorraine Warren were actually partly made famous by the Amityville Horror. That was one of their first big cases, and it was big news when it happened.
Yeah.
An interesting fact is the original Amityville Horror was the highest grossing independent film until 1990. Just throwing that out there.
Wow.
Film buffs, that's an interesting little...
That's huge, actually.
Yeah. The one made in 79, it for 11 years was the highest grossing independent film.
Oh, sweet.
So, once again, it's not part of the Conjuring universe. But the thing that I like also as a true crime fan and as a criminal justice student and just as kind of a macabre person at times. Sorry, macabre. I get it. Sorry, I'm taking the joke too far. We're done with that. But I really enjoy the backstory of Amityville Horror, and that's because it's a true story. It's an absolutely 100% true story. What happened is that back in 1974, the family that lived there was the DeFeos, okay? And one of the DeFeos was 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. And what happened is that one night, actually specifically November 13th, 1974, on that night he got up out of his bed and decided to shoot and kill his entire family. When I say his entire family, I do say entire because it was a somewhat large family for today's standard. It was his parents, and it was also 4 younger siblings, which is very sad because they were just kids. But his younger siblings, Dawn, who was 18, John, who was 9, Allison, who was 13, and Mark, who was 12, he killed them all and his parents. And the interesting part is, one of the interesting little tidbit facts of this is that all of them were found face down in their bed like they didn't hear the gunshots. And supposedly, my understanding is that he used a shotgun. So
That would have been loud.
yeah, it would have been loud, especially indoors. So I'm wondering about that now. In the movie, the remake Amityville Horror, they show that it happens during a loud thunderstorm. So I don't know if there's any truth to that, but that might help
Oh, yeah.
the situation. But I don't really know if that's true or not to the movie.
Mistake
that's
thunder
still
to-
pushing
Yeah,
the limit.
it's still pushing it.
But that helps add to the
Yeah.
supernatural
Yeah,
aspect.
it does-
It's why were they all in bed? Why were they all
Yeah. Well, they were all in bed in the middle of the night.
unaroused
Yeah,
by
they were.
gunfire?
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing is that he got picked up pretty quickly. At first, he blamed organized crime for this murder, which didn't really make much sense. And then he pled insanity. He tried to plead insanity to kind of get off on this. And at some point in time, he also blamed it on his sisters. And I read that, and it didn't specify how. And that's something that I would really actually like to look into a little bit more, because I don't know how he could have blamed that on his sisters, being that they were also killed.
Well, I don't know a whole bunch about the initial story, but I do know that, like, he called in the actual first report of the incident,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
the cops actually put him under protective custody, and then his story just kind of seemed a little bit off, and then he became the prime suspect.
See, and that's why I think these stories are convoluted as hell, because I actually thought I heard that he, like, the first night, or, like, right after it happened, he was at a bar or something like that. But I don't know. These stories get very convoluted. I mean, that does sound... If he blamed it on organized crime, that does sound kind of accurate that they would have put him in protective custody. So anyway, this happened in 1974. But Ronald DeFeo Jr. actually just died in March 12th, 2021.
Oh wow!
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
That was
yeah.
just not too long ago, actually. The guy could have had COVID because it was not that long ago. So it didn't say he had COVID. I'm just throwing that out there. That's how it didn't happen very long ago that he had passed away himself. So that's the backstory. That is what happened at Amityville before the Lutzes moved in. So the Lutz family is what the movie's actually about, and they move in, and there's just all sorts of outlandish, crazy hauntings going on there with the DeFeo family, the children haunting the family, and I believe that they stayed there, and I thought I had that in my notes, and maybe y'all might be able to dip in on this. I think they were only there for 20-something days.
Ooh, 28 days.
28 days. So they weren't there long, and they ended up leaving the house, and then this became this huge story, that everybody just wanted to hear about. It was just so interesting, so different. And then we had the Warrens. The Warrens came into the picture, and now in this case, I'm talking about real life because this didn't happen in the remake. And I really don't have a memory. Do you guys have any memories of the original Amityville, or is that just too long ago for you?
It's too long ago.
Yeah.
I'd seen the first one, but it's well over 20 plus years. I just don't remember.
Well, anyway, to make a long story short, and I am going to make this long story very short because this is also something that we're going to kind of come back to at the end, is this was one of the big stories that made Lorraine and Ed Warren famous. The Lutzes and the Warrens made some buku bucks over this story. There was books written, there was movies made, there was interviews done. This thing was huge to the paranormal community and just to curious people, and a lot of money was made.
Yeah, and even people that aren't really like horror people, like you say, like Amityville Horror, and they're like, they know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because since all this happened, and I think there's a reason for that, and that'll make sense in the end of this as well when we go back full circle. But the people that own the house now, because it is a real house, it does really exist. They've changed it. The iconic windows aren't even there anymore.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
They've actually, as far as I know, they really don't want anybody to bother them. They don't want anybody to come around and act weird or anything like that. Which, to me, being into paranormal, being into horror movies, being the person that I am, I disagree with that, and I guess that's their own that's their own choice. They did buy the house. They did own the house. I can't tell them what to do with that. I don't know the people, but quite frankly, I think if you're going to buy a historical landmark, whether it be to our American history or to any history in the world, even paranormal or horror history, I feel like you need to be open to letting people kind of experience that with you, because
it's kind of weird. Like, why would you buy it?
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Because I actually read The Goonies. We watched The Goonies recently, and this has nothing to do with this, but I was curious, so I looked up where The Goonies took place, and that one too said somebody had bought the house, changed it up, and absolutely despises people trying to come by to see it.
Oh wow.
So
I'm surprised they don't get offers from other people trying to buy it from them.
Yeah, and
in all honesty,
and they probably enjoy having this historical thing, and I don't know, maybe they're just shitty people, and they're just like, you know what, I I like it. It's mine, and I know you want to see it, but I'm angry with my life because I didn't get a train set when I was fucking 8. So fuck you guys.
Or maybe they're just angry because of the haunting in the house.
Well, that's the other thing about the Amityville house, as well as a lot of these other houses, and we're gonna put a period at the end of this statement at the end. But a lot of these places, no haunting before or after. I looked at that, and most of these places, the previous owners and the owners that own these houses afterwards said that absolutely nothing's happened. So Amityville Horror is another one of those, and it's very controversial, and I can't wait to circle back to that in the end. I don't want to get too into that right now. It's kind of more of a wrapping up
Let's
concept.
get on to our next movie in the Conjuring.
So the next one we've already discussed quite a bit in the first video or soundbite here is The Conjuring 2. The Conjuring 2 takes place in 77 and partially in 79. I guess I've got a note there for 79. And The Conjuring 2 was made in 2016. And it says in 1977, paranormal investigators Ed, Patrick Wilson, and Lorraine Warren come out of the self-imposed sabbatical to travel to Enfield, a borough in North London. There, they meet Peggy Hodgson, an overwhelmed single mother of 4, who tells the couple that something evil is in her home. Ed and Lorraine believe her story, and when the youngest daughter starts to show signs of demonic possession, as the Warrens try to help the besieged girl, they become the next targets of the malicious spirit. Dun dun dun. So, one thing I'm just noticing here is, has anybody else noticed that a lot of these movies, there's like rather large families? It's always
Yeah,
like
I
4
was
or
just
5
thinking
or
about that
6
too.
kids. Like I feel like I've read 4 kids like 5 times in this whole process. It just
Yeah,
seems
4
like,
or 5 kids. Yeah,
yeah, it's
weird.
they all, and even in Amityville Horror, I believe they had like 3 to 5, probably 4 kids. It's just interesting. Just interesting side note. So we
so
talked
it's a
about
large family.
we talked about Conjuring 2, and we kind of said that this movie was quality.
It's definitely one of the best
Definitely one
of
of the
the
best.
Conjuring universe. I really enjoyed this one. Had a lot of fun things. The one thing that I really liked about this movie was the multiple layers of, I guess, evil spirit. You think you're dealing with
Yeah.
a certain ghost.
You think you're dealing with
The old man.
Bill.
Yes, Bill.
Bill.
Creepy.
What was it? Bill Wilson? I don't have.
That sounds right.
I think it's something like that.
Yeah, but as you watch, you get a little bit more information, find out that it's something much deeper and darker, and that's where you're first introduced to the nun, if I'm not mistaken. That's her first appearance.
Oh, and The Conjuring 2?
Valak. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the big entity behind the whole thing.
He, Ed Warren in the movie, woke up one day, had this vision of the nun, painted her. She appeared in the house. The daughter saw her, actually, also. Was like, who is that?
Yes.
Mother followed her in the room. Scary scene. She also showed up at the end. Was a part of the actual...
She was the very large portion of the
Yeah,
end. So you got,
yeah.
Bill, you got the crooked man, and you got the nun.
Yeah.
So it's a triple threat for hauntings. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one. It's top tier, right next to the first one. I don't know if I'd pick a favorite between the two, but it's definitely between those.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree, as I said earlier. So, interestingly enough, about this one, Bill Wilkins, I've got it right here. Bill Wilkins, the ghost of Bill Wilkins, was actually real. That's a true story. To the Enfield house. So there is history of that man owning the house and him dying in the house.
Did he actually die in the chair?
It didn't say specifically the chair, but it did say in the house. So it probably, I don't know. I mean, I would say you got about a 50-50 shot. But he did.
Never know with Hollywood.
Yeah, but he was real. He was a real person. And before I really get into this, did you have anything that you wanted to add about The Conjuring 2?
No, I mean, I didn't really... I mean, I liked it. I just didn't think it wasn't, like, my favorite one. I just thought the first Conjuring was better, and I didn't like the whole Bill thing. I just thought that was kind of weird.
Conjuring 2 is also the one. I thought there was a little boy that had the car that he pushed into the.
Yes.
Yeah, in the
that
house,
is the
yeah.
youngest brother that had a stutter in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And he was the one that was seeing the Crooked Man from
Yeah.
the nursery rhyme. And the Crooked Man scene is top notch, chef's kiss. Mwah. It's just super creepy.
It
Absolutely
is.
love that part.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I guess because it was just so creepy and just so.
Even there's one scene with Old Man Bill where their basement is flooded, and Ed Warren in the movie is trying to fix something like a busted pipe or whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
submerged halfway up his body, and the mother goes down into the basement to try to check on him, whatnot. She gets pulled in by Bill's spirit, and he bites her arm. And Ed comes over, saves her, and she pulls up her arm, and she's got some bite marks, and there's some missing teeth. And then they find a retainer in the water, put it up against the bite mark, and where the teeth are in the retainer are the empty spaces. So it like there's a lot of scenes in that movie that really jump out and make it worthwhile.
It's funny because out of the three villains, I guess you'd say, I think the Crooked Man is the creepiest to me.
Yeah, same here.
And then Bill Wilkins, I kind of even liked him more than the Nun, honestly, as funny as that is. I don't know why, I just kind of like the creepy old man,
Yeah.
Bill Wilkins,
They portray him very well.
Yeah.
I feel like the Nun was better in the Nun.
Yeah, probably so. She
but-
also didn't have as much competition with other
Oh, yeah, very true. Very
spirits
true.
and demonic possessors. And I believe also in The Conjuring 2, Bill Wilkins was kind of forced to be there, wasn't he?
Yes,
He wanted
he
to
was
move
forced
on.
by Valak.
Yeah, by
the Nun.
Alec the Nun
And-
to stay there, and he didn't want to be there. He wanted to move
Yeah.
on or whatever the case is. So, kind of going back to the real life, because that's really what this whole thing is about, is talking about the Warrens in real life versus kind of the fiction of Hollywood here. Is so they go about this in the movie. In the movie, they do say that Janet, I believe, was her name in the movie. She or her name in real life. But they remember in the movie, they caught them faking some of the haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, we caught them faking it, so they're faking the whole thing, and it kind of added this drama to. They said that they had to fake it, so then that way they wouldn't kill their family, I think it was, to get rid of the investigators. So that was like this kind of Hollywood spin on it. But in real life, Janet has confessed to a small percentage of being a hoax, and that she did fake some of it, and this is real life. And she said that they did that. They kind of played it off like it was a joke with her and her sister, and that they were kind of faking things to see if they'd get caught by the investigators, which I just think is weird, because if you've got a
Yeah,
haunting
that's
going
weird.
on and you've got this stuff happening to your family and it's so serious, like why would you be faking things? I don't know. That seems a little
Exactly.
Well,
strange
if you
to
have like
me.
a few weird happenstances and you're trying to take advantage of it, make it seem more
Yeah.
legit. I mean, maybe at that point, but it apparently was never to the extent that it was shown. Although, I mean, obviously.
Well, her and her sister said that if the investigators were there and nothing was happening, they'd kind of make something happen, to kind of, make it,
More interesting.
make the story continue, make it more interesting. Yeah, exactly. So, besides that, this part blows my mind, because just showing how uninvolved, like we said in the first Conjuring, the Warrens were told to leave. They did after a seance. The whole exorcism scene never happened in Conjuring 1. I didn't say that earlier, but that never happened. And even the Warren said that he would not have done an exorcism without a priest there, because even though he was a demonologist, that really wasn't supposed to be. He wasn't supposed to be performing exorcisms without an ordained priest sent and accepted and approved by the Vatican to do that kind of thing. So that was all bullshit, and they left after they were told to get the hell out after a seance. So in Conjuring 2, interestingly enough, multiple sources that I've looked at have said that Ed and Lorraine showed up uninvited, and that they actually left a day later.
Yeah, they were barely there at all.
They were barely there. I believe that they did weasel their way in, and they got some video or audio recording, but they were barely there, and they showed up kind of uninvited.
Yeah, where in the movie he's playing Elvis on a guitar.
Yeah.
No,
Which was
definitely didn't happen.
Which was so touching. I mean, they really did have some touching scenes, and that's what we were kind of talking about earlier. The romanticism between Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah.
A lot of it was really brought out in The Conjuring 2 because his life was in jeopardy, and it was showing him and his wife and how much they loved each other. So I think we've beat Conjuring 2 to death here.
Yeah.
If you guys don't mind, let's go ahead and move on.
Roll over to the next.
So we've got now The Conjuring 3, otherwise known as The Devil Made Me Do It, which was just released in 2021. Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this one here is paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren take on one of the most sensational cases of their careers after a cop stumbles upon a dazed and bloodied young man walking down the road. Accused of murder, the suspect claims demonic possession as his defense, forcing the Warrens into supernatural inquiry, unlike anything they've ever seen before. That's the description, back of the box, blockbuster style. What do you guys got for The Conjuring Devil Made Me Do It?
Well, it's probably my least favorite out of the base Conjuring trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a fun watch, but it didn't grab me like the others. I don't know how much of it is really like I don't know when the Warrens in real life happened on the case.
I think it all happened in 1981.
Okay. Oh wow.
Well, I know in the movie they were with the younger boy before it was the main culprit of the whole thing. But with these movies, it seems like they're portrayed as being a lot more involved and being in the thick of it with the entire situation. So I don't know when they actually jumped in.
So what I have here, and this is another movie I don't remember very much.
Yeah.
I will say this, and just for a little backstory here, some of these movies, Liza and I are very good friends, and we've had horror movie nights for years now. Some of those horror movie nights, we stay up and we watch 3 or 4 movies. We're both falling asleep, literally picking on each other for, you're falling asleep, and trying to mess with each other to stay awake throughout the whole movie.
And this was one of those.
Most of the time, we're falling asleep and trying to keep each other up. Or we've been drinking, doing something like that at a party maybe, and we come back and we watch a horror movie. It's been our thing for a long time, but I think this is one of those movies. Liza was telling me that this is one of the ones that I fell asleep during as well. With Rob's mention of how much he didn't like it, it might have just been it just wasn't very good, and it probably didn't keep my interest.
It's very different from the others, I guess, because it's dealing, instead of a ghost, I guess it's a demon.
Okay.
That latches itself onto the person.
Yeah.
Well, the demons, Valak's the demons are most of
Well,
them are demons.
even
aren't
with Valak being the demon in the second, she is attached herself to a ghost who is haunting that abode, that
they?
house.
Okay, yeah.
So
You're right.
it makes sense with,
Oh yeah. I see what you're saying,
like a haunting for the second one. Now, with the third one, there is no...
It's totally different circumstance.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It's
Now we're getting into
based
the legal.
upon someone
Yeah.
doing something. And with the movie, it is originally on a young kid, and he accepts the demon into his body, and then it just blows up from there. And it doesn't really even focus on the court case that much. It's definitely part of the movie, but it's not a huge part of the movie.
Yeah, so it's kind of more or less gets into the demon defense.
Yes.
The demon.
And that brings me to where my notes come in, because this one is one that, since I don't really remember the movie, I kind of just looked up the real-life case. So what I have is, are we looking at Arnie? Arnie, okay, because it's spelt a little strange, Arnie. Cheyenne Johnson was the guy's name, the one that was convicted of murder. and he killed Alan Bono. And interestingly enough, little factoid here, because I like to throw those out there, things that if I was listening, I'd be like, no shit. This was the first murder recorded in Brookfield, Connecticut.
Oh, no shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. So he was trying to beat the murder rap by blaming demon possession. And my understanding of this is that Ed and Lorraine got involved, and I think that from everything I read, it seemed like they were kind of pushing this defense.
Oh, yeah.
They believed it, so they were really pushing this defense. And I think he got on board because, I mean, shit, you just killed somebody who wouldn't get on board with somebody supporting you, even if it's like, hey,
Yeah.
the cheese in the moon made me do it. If you got people that are willing to stand behind you and support you and try to come up with evidence for that, I mean, shit, I'll go with the cheese in the moon defense.
Yeah.
So in this one, it's not cheese in the moon; it's demon possession. So the actual fact is the guy received a 10 to 20 and got out after 5 years for good
I was
behavior.
going to say, I think it was much less than the original sentence.
So he barely did any time for this.
That is wild.
I believe it was his landlord, something like that, and it was they got into some kind of argument.
In the movie,
and
it was a friend that was working at the kennel.
I want to say in real life it was a landlord, and they had a bunch of people around. His girlfriend, some people were there, and they got into an argument, and this happened.
Yeah. Well, apparently he married his girlfriend, or at least in the movie, after he got out of prison. So I don't know if that's.
I mean,
real
I
life or
hope
not.
I hope that
Yeah.
worked out for him, and I hope that he's very happy.
Well, it didn't work out for his landlord.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I don't know if he stayed there. I'm sure he didn't stay there, but I mean, what better rent than nobody to collect it? So, I hope they fell in love, and I hope he's very happy, and all of this is behind them. And also in the second Conjuring, Ed Warren played Elvis, which didn't happen at all, which is my point. Who knows? Nobody really knows. So this being just not really a good movie, and Ed and Lorraine Warren, I don't really have a whole lot to this one about Ed and Lorraine Warren, except it just seemed like they were pushing their own agenda on it. It seemed like they were really kind of like, this is a good way to put this out in the spotlight. I think that it was a good way for them to get their name involved with the case. It was a good way to.
So what I feel is what we would nowadays call like temporary insanity or something like that. They didn't know what to call it, so as soon as it was, demonic possession, I wasn't myself, and you might not have been yourself at that time.
Yeah.
But as soon as someone passed the words along to Ed and Lorraine, I assume, in real life, what actually happened, they got interested and were like, oh, demonic possession in court, we have to be there.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's really their only connection. I said I'm not 100%.
And that's really something I'm going to touch on at the end here. Is it seemed like a lot of Ed and Lorraine. It seemed like where there was a spotlight to be was kind of where they wanted to be, and I'm going to get into that at the end a little bit more here. We only have one more movie to cover, and then we'll go ahead and kind of bring it back around here and kind of talk about this whole thing as a whole. If you guys are ready to move on.
Go ahead with the next one.
So our final movie here that I put in there, this is also an older one. It was made in 2009, so it was a little bit after the remake of the Amityville Horror. So it was kind of amping up to become what the Conjuring universe did today, kind of bringing all of this to light. So this one here is when their son Matt. Kyle,
what's the movie?
Oh, this is. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is Haunting in Connecticut. I thought I said that. Haunting in Connecticut. 2009. I did say 2009. I remember just talking about that. But Haunting in Connecticut. Okay. When their son Matt, Kyle Gallner, receives a diagnosis of cancer, Sarah, Virginia Madsen, and Peter, Martin Donovan, Campbell, move to Connecticut to be closer to his doctors. At first, all is well, but then Matt becomes increasingly disturbed by what appears to be paranormal activity. Sarah turns to a priest for help, and the ghosts are seemingly banished. But Matt's condition takes a sudden and unexplained turn for the worst, and the lives of Sarah and the rest of her family are endangered. So this is the final movie. So if you're watching these in order, and I didn't include this, this isn't part of the Conjuring universe. But if you're watching this in order, this is the last movie, and it takes place in 1986. So this is 5 years after The Devil Made Me Do It. I read you the description. You said you guys really don't remember this one. Probably did
I
see
have
it.
not seen this.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that.
I remember this
one.
being pretty good. Could I rate it? Really, I don't think I could because I don't think I remember enough about it. And I did try to watch all of these before we came on here. I just missed a couple, and I do remember this. I have seen this movie. It was a while ago. But so the real story behind this, just to get right to that, since you guys don't have any comments on the movie itself, it was the Snedeker family found out that the house used to be a funeral parlor after they moved in, and then this is just really interesting. And I read this. This is more than one source that said this, so this is really interesting to me. But they claim to be assaulted, raped, and sodomized by demons.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So
Okay.
assaulted, raped, and sodomized by demons.
That's interesting.
I don't know what that would look like, feel like, be like. I really, in some sick, crazy way, I wish I could see that because I don't know what the hell that. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Did a demon come
I
in
don't know.
and just straight up just bend
Was
him over the
it-
bed, or
Like ghost, or what is it? When you wake up and you're it's sleep paralysis and you can't do
Yeah,
anything.
but I
Is it
mean-
like
Yeah.
half dream?
I mean, did they feel the demons sodomize them? Did they just assume they're sodomized and maybe it was just really spicy food? I don't know. I'm not really sure, and that's just really just. I don't know. I want to know more about that statement. When
That's
I
a
read
very odd statement.
when I read this in multiple places, I wrote it down and I was like, first of all, I want to say sodomized by demons because when am I ever going to have this opportunity again, guys?
Maybe
and
that's where the rotting meat's.
That's
There you
probably-
go.
And
Yeah.
maybe they need to get checked out. But also by the way, I am so sorry if this actually did happen to somebody and I'm sitting here making fun of it, but I just don't see sodomized by demons. I don't know. I don't know how you live after that. So the kids saw ghosts. Thankfully, they were not sodomized by demons, as far as I could tell. Because I mean,
Fingers
that would
crossed.
be awful.
Hoping for the best.
That'd be terrible. So, in real life, Ed and Lorraine got involved, like they do. I'm not really sure on this one. I really didn't see whether they had gone to them for help or if they'd just shown up. Because I do think sometimes these cases caught some kind of popularity, and Ed and Lorraine showed up. They weren't invited to Enfield for Conjuring 2. They just showed up. So, I feel like that happened probably sometimes.
I feel quite often.
Yeah, they probably. They
What
probably.
my gut's telling me.
Yeah, your story's in the paper, and the next day Ed and Lorraine are hanging out in your front yard, looking at trees and shit, and you're like, what are you guys doing? We're Ed and Lorraine, we're Ed and Lorraine Warren.
We're drawing a picture for you.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us what's happened.
We're drawing your landscapes.
Yeah.
we're just landscape artists. So an interesting one about this is that there was a writer that was working with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and he said, and this was a quote in one of the articles that I read, "Oh, they're crazy. You've got some of the story. Just use what works and make the rest up. Just make it up and make it scary."
And who is that a quote by?
That is a quote that the writer said that Ed had told him.
Oof.
Oh, wow.
So, this story also, another one, no hauntings before, no hauntings after. And this was after Amityville, so the Snedekers knew of Amityville and that the Lutzes made a lot of money off of their story. So, and with that being said, this is kind of where I wanted to bring the whole thing full circle, and I had a couple of interesting notes here. First of all, it was said that they, and I just want to throw this out there because this is really interesting. It said that they never charged money for the cases. I read in multiple places that they had done over 10,000 cases.
Wow.
I think that they said that they had done over or been involved with over 10,000 cases. But just to put that in perspective, one case per a day with no breaks would be 27 years.
Yeah,
So,
10,000's a big number.
So another source said over 100 cases. I'm going to say that's probably more realistic because 10,000 cases
That is a
literally
lot.
does not
there's
seem
no way
credible.
There's no way they could have done that.
Yeah.
No.
It's impossible. So they're criticized by the New England Skeptical Society for promoting pseudoscience. And this is really interesting, and this really got me thinking. So there was organizations and people that really criticized the Warrens, saying that they were really indulging people's delusions and kind of enabling people's mental illness, saying that a lot of these people may have been imagining or delusional about these things, and that the Warrens were really adding fuel to that fire, and that was really not safe or okay because these people probably needed psychological help.
I mean, I could definitely see that, considering that Ed Warren was, the first demonologist that wasn't, I guess, a part of the Christian church.
Absolutely. And it does seem, as I was saying, and I left some of this. So the reason that I wanted to talk about Amityville after the fact was because we were still kind of going through the stories. But Amityville actually, everybody came out after Amityville Horror and pretty much said that it was a hoax.
Oh, wow.
And I believe, and that's why I said I wanted to kind of get to this point to add this, but I believe that's why they weren't in the remake, because I think that they wanted to leave that whole part of it out, that this was just kind of some money-making scheme, because there were sources that said that, the Lutzes, as well as Ed Warren and the writer that he had with him, he kind of had people with him, to make these stories more public and stuff, almost like a PR person. It said that this was kind of discussed, the story was kind of discussed and arranged over multiple bottles of wine, is what one source said. So, a great backstory with the DeFeos, very convincing, because, I mean, a guy killed his whole family in there. What better place for a haunting than a place where a guy killed 6 members of his own family?
In a very weird circumstance.
In a very weird circumstance. The house was creepy looking. I mean, it was like the right place, the right time, the right backstory. And this really kind of hurt a lot of people's opinions when these things started coming out, that their evidence just wasn't as strong, and that people were saying, hey, some of these people probably need therapy and psychological help, and you're really making the situation worse. Also, after Ed died, many witnesses came forward.
You all right?
No. I saw your boots. I thought it was a man.
Oh, my God. You need to stop. This is... Okay. She just got scared because in my studio I've got some rain boots over in the corner, and she thought that it was a man. But that was really interesting.
Too much talk about horror, huh?
So
got you on your toes?
So that just happened. And I'm not even going to edit that out because that was ridiculous. And I want the people need to know.
Can't wait to see that on video.
Yeah. For a second there, I was like, oh, wow, we really have something here. So after Ed died, this is really interesting, but after Ed died, many witnesses came forward and said that Ed had told them and even paid some of them to lie.
Oh, wow.
So, and this is where I wanted to kind of open the discussion with you guys, because I was a little deflated during my research to all of this, because I really liked Amityville Horror. I really liked The Conjurings. I really liked the idea of this demonologist and these ghost hunters, and it kind of, throughout my research, it really seemed like most of this stuff was a hoax, that they kind of followed the spotlight, that Ed was kind of getting people to go along with the story, and that he was kind of concocting these situations or blowing these situations out of proportion to sell books, to get on interviews, and to make money.
Well, and they never charged anyone for their services.
Yeah.
No, but it makes a hell of a story that's
it does,
worth something.
And if someone's denying their credibility, well, we never charged for our help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that does help. And on top of that, also, you're not, and I could see that, because Ed was a very smart man. And I could see, hey, I'm not going to pay you to come visit you, But if I get this great story, that'll be worth so much more in
It's
book
gonna pay
sales.
for
Exact-
itself.
yeah.
and then everything else. And especially if he's with these people that are already freaked out, think their house is haunted, they make it out to be more than it
Yeah,
is.
I know all these names from this demonology book I had when I was 12.
Yeah.
So how much of it is like snake oil, and how much of it is actual credibility? It's a difficult I don't know, slope to maneuver around.
And that's what makes this whole story, Ed and Lorraine Warren, it makes it just like Demon. It's funny and it's ironic, and it comes to almost a poetic into my research because, like ghosts, like demons, like religion, like these events, it's kind of all about your faith on whether Ed and
Yeah.
Lorraine were even
Yeah.
telling the truth. They did stand by their word through most of this, and so did some of their closest people. There are people that worked for them, and some of their supporters, their son-in-law, and some people swear that all of this is true and all of this is absolutely real, and that it's not that far, that the movies aren't even that far from the truth. And I really don't see that being the case, just as a reasonable, skeptical, commonsensical individual.
Well, okay, so here's one thing: is they're basically the very, very first paranormal investigators that ever existed.
Yeah.
So it's hard to dispute that all of it was fake.
Oh no, I agree, and I do think that they did hear some shit. I think they saw some shit.
Oh yeah,
And I think
totally
that
think so.
and I think that things did happen. But to the extent, or even close to the extent that these movies portray, I doubt. I very much so doubt.
Well, even that quote that he apparently said to the person writing his book.
Yeah.
That's some damning evidence right there.
We know what
That's
we
not
know,
good.
and
Yeah,
we know what we
that's-
know, and put that in there, and then make it scary, and add what you need to add,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
So-
scary like some rain boots.
and scary like the rain boots in the corner.
They're like standing out of like a weird corner. Okay, they're like, it's not like they're in the corner.
Yeah, the corner of your eye. Yeah, right.
So all right, but there's literally no body above it. Anyway, this is what I deal with like all the time, guys. Seriously.
But anyway, yeah,
That's
but
my best friend.
But people like a good ghost story too.
Very
Like
true.
Love a
they
good ghost
love
story.
to kind of like exaggerate and kind of believe what isn't real, or I think, and especially people that like horror movies or any kind of thing like that. Like I kind of think it's fascinating to think that what if this really did happen?
I mean,
Well, and that's something is a lot of these stories are, I guess, common day folklore.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
the start of newer folk tales and whatnot. Before like the creepypasta and whatnot
urban
Yeah.
legends
came out.
Or urban
Yeah.
legends.
they're recent urban legends.
for
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah. And it seemed that Ed and Lorraine Warren were so ready and eager to attach their name onto all of them that they could.
Exactly.
And I wanted to leave this fact kind of for last as well. This whole wrapping this all up, and still got a little bit of time wrapping this up. What infuriated me kind of the most is when I realized that the last assessment was that the Warrens were worth $80+ million.
Yeah. That's
Wow.
So when you
That
take
is a lot of money.
that is a lot of money, and that
Yeah.
that's what really makes me feel like they really sold it. They took the rights to these movies, and the thing is that it was their movie too, because if there's something interesting going on in your life that's sellable as a movie,
Yeah.
and I see this, I hear this story, oh, Rob's got this thing going on, and that could be a great story, that could be a great book, that could be a great movie, and I show up and insert myself into that, it's now my story to sell too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
now, you need my rights as well.
Yeah.
I need to sell my rights and my part of
Ooh.
the story. So it almost seems like, and I hate to say this, and I'm going to be honest with you, I wish that a lot of this was true. I wish that a lot of Ed and Lorraine Warren and what they went through in these movies, I wish more of it was true than I believe is. But I think Ed Warren was, or maybe Lorraine, maybe both of them. I think that they were very, very, very intelligent people, and they kind of knew where to insert themselves and how to insert themselves to make that make that buck.
Yeah, just
You
to
know,
profit
get
from
that-
the situation as best they could.
And I mean, because like I just said, now I'm a part of your story. Now it's my rights to sell, and that's what happened with a lot of these cases. Even The Conjuring too.
Oh, you want to hear about this random haunting? Well, I was
Yeah.
there for a little bit, but I was there. Do you want to hear my take on it? What I experienced, what we experienced.
And they build up that reputation.
Yep.
They're the world's first paranormal hunters or ghost hunters,
Investigators, yeah.
paranormal investigators, ghost hunters. And he is a demonologist, one of the only demonologists at the time that was not ordained. And she's clairvoyant, and there's proof that her clairvoyance is above. And as I said, I hope that was the truth.
Yeah.
Because for all we know, that was a friend of hers or somebody that she knew or somebody that went along with the story as well. I want the Warrens to be a true story. I want these things to have actually happened. I love horror. I love these stories. I love the ideas. But I think there's a lot of greased wheels. And unfortunately, that's kind of the conclusion I came to with all my research at the end here. And there's just so many people. With the Amityville, everybody knows it was a hoax. That came out. And then even the Enfield situation where they were... The girl even admitted that at least a small part of that was a hoax, and that they used to do it to mess with the investigators. It just seems like all of this stuff that I thought was really cool and creepy about this story kind of started crumbling the more I dug,
Yeah.
I think the Warrens were intelligent people. I'll say it again. I think that they put themselves in the right place at the right time to make the right money. I'm going to say 80 plus because I read 85, I read 87, $80+ million. They did something right, because you're not going to make that kind of money on the lecture circuit for colleges.
They were great salesmen.
And great sales, selling themselves, selling the story.
Charismatic.
I mean, what do you guys think?
I mean, with anything that is coming from Hollywood, so going to, the Conjuring universe of movies, it's inspired by.
Yeah.
So, my first introductions to the Warrens are definitely from movies. Haven't read any of their books. Seen a few videos, read a few things about them. But mainly it's what I've learned of them comes from movies. Anything is just going to be inspired by, based off of true events, but loosely. So, yes, I would agree. I would love for this to be as, real as possible. My love for the unknown, the ethereal, the things that can't be explained. I wish that there was more of those, and it seems like with all these stories involving the Warrens...
Seems like there's a lot of hoaxes. Seems like
Yeah.
there's a lot of exaggerations.
Or embellishments, yes.
Exaggerations, embellishments.
Yeah.
People saying that Ed made deals with them, that he paid them, that he asked them to lie. Now, I can't say that that's true or not because Ed's not here to defend himself. And people may have come out with that for some kind of publicity after the fact.
Yeah.
But the whole story to me and everything I've kind of described and put together here kind of all makes sense. It kind of all fits together as a puzzle,
Absolutely.
in my opinion. I hate to speak poorly of the man that he passed away, and rest in peace, Ed Warren, but it just does seem like there's some fishy business going on in the background and the side,
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
behind
and-
the scenes.
In
Hands
my
down.
opinion, they were great salespeople. Like, people tend to believe people that if you say it with confidence and then you have a little bit of backing up with you, like you have a little bit of truth to it, you have people, like you mentioned, Lorraine, one of the women, she said that she was clairvoyant and all that kind of good stuff. Like, if you just have a little bit of that, that truth to it, and you say it with confidence, and you're like, this is this, and you have cares, and you're charismatic, and you're a good storyteller, and you get people to believe these stories. And a lot of it was, before like social media or whatever,
Yeah,
like, so that people
absolutely.
couldn't get the
People
story.
still bought books.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think they were really great salesmen, and they just had this idea, and they were just really amazing at selling themselves and their experiences.
Yeah, it takes a lot of intelligence to run a pyramid scheme off yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But the part that I guess annoys me a little bit, though, is that if they were as passionate about the paranormal as they stated and as they said that they were, I really think that all of the evidence that came out after the fact and everything that we know now, I think if anything, they really just kind of hurt it. They really just kind of hurt the reality.
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's necessarily hurting it. Pulling forth the skeptics, everyone who does not believe, you have those people that are going to go out there and try to debunk it, try to find something extra. So, if anything, it kindled the start of paranormal investigation, which is huge.
Yeah.
With anything you see on TV.
And I think a lot of people do that because I got really into Ghost Hunters, the show Ghost Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that show. Shit, I watched the first few seasons religiously, and nothing really ever happened. There's this and that,
like the Blackwell Ghost.
Maybe the Blackwell Ghost. I think that was. I think that guy made amazing movies. I absolutely recommend the Blackwell Ghost, but I do think that was all also staged for the most part. But hell, he's believable. That guy was very believable,
Yes.
and I love Blackwell Ghost. And honestly, if anybody's seen the Blackwell Ghost, please feel free to comment as well on the Blackwell Ghost, because a lot of people I know haven't seen it. I watched it. I would love to discuss it. Please, in the comments, tell me what you thought of Blackwell Ghost if you'd seen it.
I'll have to make sure to watch those so
It's
I
so
can
good.
help
It's
respond
on
to the
Amazon.
comments.
It's a lot of parts, though.
It's on
but
Amazon.
It's
There's
good.
like 4 parts. It's great. Very, very well done. The guy is just a superstar, man. I mean, it's basically this one guy, and just you can't stop watching him. He's so entertaining. But it's him, making a documentary to go out and find ghosts. And getting back to it, that's what a lot of this is about, is ghost hunters, things like that, where people go to find the paranormal. And I watched the first few seasons of Ghost Hunters religiously. Not very much happened. Occasionally you get like a small EVP, or there'd be a shadow that moved or something. But I feel like even that show started to kind of exaggerate. I feel like they started to kind of set things up. I feel like they kind of started, because people are so interested in the paranormal. We're so interested in horror movies.
Yeah.
We're so interested in being scared. And as I said in our previous podcast about why we like horror movies, it's those chemicals. It's that
the endorphin
the
rush.
endorphins. It's mental masturbation, as I said before. And we want it. We want it so bad. And I think that just there isn't enough out there to the point that people are producing it. People are producing these things, and it's ruining the credibility to me. Like I said, I think it hurts it because it ruins the credibility, and that's the word I'm looking for, is the credibility of paranormal. I'm an absolute skeptic. I don't believe in much paranormal, but people like this, I think, and I'm gonna love these movies, and I'm gonna love Ed and Lorraine universe. I think it's all very interesting. I'm gonna continue to love it for what it is, but I do think that it kind of ruins the credibility, and I'm always in the back of my mind going to be like, is this bullshit?
Well, if they keep coming out with movies, I will continue to watch them all. I'm a huge fan. Now, whether or not the Warrens did what they did, what they started was huge, and they really did change the world.
Yeah, they did.
So, was it good? Was it bad? I don't know. It happened. But they definitely left their mark.
Yeah, they did.
Absolutely. And so this is definitely a topic that I would love to see some people blowing up the comment boxes on. I would love to know people's opinions on this. If you're interested in this topic, if you're interested in these movies, how you feel about these movies. I mean, shit, tell us what your favorites are. Tell us, do you think Ed and Lorraine Warren were full of shit, or do you think that they had a lot of credibility and that they were telling the truth? Please feel free to comment. Definitely subscribe to us, because we're going to have a lot more shows like this, and a lot more shows about a lot of different things. And I think you should stay tuned, because I think it's only going to get better from here. And go ahead and hit that like button for us. And, thank you guys for being on. Robert, as always, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I know we'll see you again soon. You're definitely one of our BFFs in this whole process. And,
yeah, thank you.
And Liza, as always, thank you for being here. And thank you for listening, watching, and staying tuned. And please stay tuned for future shows. Hit that comment box. Thank you. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
Great day, great weekend. Whenever you listen to this, have a great day.